let's start with the first part. Who needs public Wi-Fi? And you may be surprised to find out a lot of businesses do provide public Wi-Fi. We can find free internet access in many locations. We know about motels, hotels, resorts, retail, schools. Well, there are gyms, hair salons, airports, restaurants, coffee bars, clinics, churches, municipal offices, libraries. Libraries are very important. People go there to get internet access. Shopping malls, apartment buildings, sports events, auto dealerships. Anywhere that the public go, then there is a free Wi-Fi service. You may wonder why a free Wi-Fi service when everybody has a mobile phone and can get internet. But the fact is that you cannot get 5G in all locations, especially inside buildings, in remote locations, and so there is a demand for public internet. We also have on the right-hand column paid Wi-Fi. There are subscription services for what we call mobile broadband, which is Wi-Fi that's available on a mobile device. We see that at airports. We can buy the service online, paying with a credit card. We can buy vouchers, and we see entities such as internet cafes, not so common in the United States, but very popular around the world, where people go and pay for an hour's access to the internet. Locations which are probably outside the range of 4G and 5G, marinas, campgrounds, RV parks charge for the internet service. You pay for the internet service on aircraft and on cruise ships. And there's a halfway point in the middle where you may get part of the internet service for free, and you may pay for the service. For example, some hotels will give a free slow service, low-speed service, and then charge for a high-speed service. Airports, if you're familiar with international airports or even national airports, they may give you 30 minutes of free access and then charge you at hourly rates. Trade shows also, they provide internet access for people on booths, but they do charge for visitors. Aircraft Wi-Fi. There are some airlines now offering free Wi-Fi for frequent flyers, and other applications like student accommodation may well be data limited, and after that the student would pay, or multi-unit buildings where the cost of the Wi-Fi is included in the condo fee. What are the characteristics of public Wi-Fi? Well, they have one common feature, which is the hotspot Wi-Fi is not encrypted. That allows anyone to connect to the service. Unlike any business Wi-Fi, which has WPA2 encryption, or even in some newer installations, WPA3 encryption. The reason is that if you want anyone to use their device to connect to it, if you're going to encrypt it, you have to post the password on a big sign. And so there really is no point in having encryption. And that is why the Wi-Fi hotspot is considered unsafe, because you can put a hacking tool, such as a tool called a sniffer, on a computer and capture messages. And companies like Apple regard this as a risk, and they make it difficult to connect to unencrypted Wi-Fi. It's always a good idea to use a VPN when accessing a public Wi-Fi. And there are many situations where Wi-Fi is the only method of access to the internet. For example, international travelers. If you travel internationally, you get to the airport, your phone doesn't have a roaming agreement with the service providers, and so you're obliged to use the Wi-Fi. As I mentioned, wilderness locations outside the reach of the 5G networks, Wi-Fi is the only option there. Now, there are many businesses that have installed public internet services. Here's a few of the brands. If you walk into any one of these brands, you're going to be able to get Wi-Fi access, like anything from a Dunkin' Donuts, a Marriott, an Airbnb. The Airbnb organization requires that the host provide the Wi-Fi for guests. I mentioned mobile broadband service providers. Here are some of them. They charge a monthly subscription for the Wi-Fi service. You may have heard of some of these. Boingo, for example, is available in international airports. If you go to an international airport, for example, like Miami International, you might get 30 minutes for free, and then you're charged on an hourly basis for the internet service. On the other hand, if you have a subscription with Boingo, you can log in with your subscription and get internet access through that. And so there are several of these companies, all quite successful, that are charging customers on a monthly basis for the Wi-Fi subscription service. And in turn, they have agreements with Wi-Fi providers who will then interface with their API to allow that customer to connect. Now, when we look at the market segmentation, we divide it into 4 segments, 4 types. At the bottom left is what you're probably familiar with, the business Wi-Fi internet hotspots. That's the hotspots you find in hotels, in coffee bars, in the gym, and basically somebody connects a wireless access point to a network, doesn't encrypt it, so anyone can log in and get internet access. They may put a login page there as well. We have another 3 types of market segments. At the top left, managed service providers. These are businesses that provide a complete IT solution for a company. It could be a hotel, it could be a sports stadium. And so they might provide the Wi-Fi installation, charge the customer for providing and managing that installation, and may even charge the end users by who want to pay for the internet service, and share that with the people who want to use the service. And managed service providers might be the people who are installing internet Wi-Fi in airports, for example. Maybe the airport IT department doesn't want to get involved with that, and so they bring in a managed service provider to do that. Down at the bottom right, we have systems integrators. This is a different market where the Wi-Fi is part of a larger system. An example of this is a hotel management system, what we call a property management system, like Oracle, Opera, for example, where the management system is integrated with the Wi-Fi, so that when the hotel guest checks in, the management system generates the access code, gives that to the guest, printed on the paper that the guest gets, activates that guest on the Wi-Fi, and then when the guest checks out, the management system removes that guest from the Wi-Fi. The management system has several options whereby a frequent visitor to the hotel, somebody who's on the preferred guest program, can get faster internet, for example, when they check in. Or they may have a code that allows them to check into any hotel and get faster internet. And so what the systems integrators are doing is installing a software such as Oracle Opera, a PMS system in a hotel, and then building out the interfaces to APIs. So the Wi-Fi system will have an API which interfaces with the hotel management software. Up at the top right, we have ISPs and community services. These are internet service providers who provide maybe a mobile broadband service or a fixed broadband service, and they're providing services opportunistically where there is little or no alternative. In the US, we have pretty good coverage, but outside the US, not so. A lot of people in rural areas don't have access to the internet, and so ISPs will provide this access, usually in the form of a mobile broadband, so that people can connect with mobile devices. So those are the 4 segments where the Wi-Fi services are offered. Now, let's look first at the business Wi-Fi internet hotspots. I'm sure you're all familiar with this, whether it's a motel, an RV park, a retail, a library. The business has a computer network, hopefully firewall from the internet, and so the business installs a wireless access point that provides the internet access for the guest. And we hope that it has a firewall to prevent the guest getting access to the business network. But that's an essential part, really. So it's not only a wireless access point, but maybe a hotspot controller that has wireless, that has a login page, and has a firewall to protect the business network. Larger systems require a more sophisticated set of controls. If we're looking at larger hotels, resorts, trade shows, airports, that type of thing, we're looking at maybe VLAN management for multi-use wireless networks, so that we have a wireless network which can be used by not only visitors but also by staff and other segments that within the area. We're looking for multi-tier login, maybe optional credit card billing, maybe as I mentioned in the case of an airport, where you might want to provide free 30 minutes every 24 hours and then charge for access, and also accept the credentials of a service provider. We are looking for multi-WAN for higher reliability. That's important because a lot of hotel franchises now require the franchise owners to provide a dual WAN connection for the guest network, because it's very important that the guests have continuity for the internet access. We want cloud management, so that managed service providers can outsource the management of this network, and take that away from the hotel management. We're looking for APIs for integration with third-party software, such as the property management system that I described to you. And finally, a firewall to protect the business network that's PCI DSS compliant. That's payment card industry data security standard, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Managed service providers have some sort of central facility where they're managing service for a number of different clients, and so they probably have installed the infrastructure, and so they're then managing remotely that infrastructure, charging the client for a fee. This works very well for clients who have no IT department, because they're able to get a headache and pass it on to somebody else. And so if there are problems with customers, customer support is needed, the managed service provider will handle that. Now, this is why the managed service provider needs a cloud management system, so that the business can manage a number of different customers remotely. The management service provider cloud system would be multi-site, so that they can manage different customers independently, and they get visibility of each customer. And so the cloud system requires a certain degree of sophistication to allow the managed service provider to do this. The cloud service probably would also require APIs, so that the other software management systems that the managed service provider is using can be integrated with the cloud for the public Wi-Fi. Systems integrators, well, the most visible are the hotel systems integrators, where you check into the hotel and you're given the room key, and you're given the internet code to log into the internet, and that's activated. If you're part of the loyalty program, then you may get preferential internet access, that you may get a faster data speed, and that is done with the integration between the property management system and the Wi-Fi management system through APIs. This diagram shows that interface. So the property management system might be a server on site. It may be a remote server which interfaces through a cloud management system. And so that will generate the access code, send that over to the controller using the API, and then when the guest checks out, remove that access code from the controller. Reservation systems are also very popular in other forms of hospitality, not just hotels. Campground reservation systems, RV park reservation systems. RV is big business in the United States. Outside the USA, campgrounds are very popular. Caravan parks are very popular in Europe. And so all these have reservation systems that connect up to the Wi-Fi, because everybody needs Wi-Fi. If you're going to a campground, you're definitely going to have Wi-Fi to upload all those selfies. Very important. So the hotel management is going to decide exactly how the Wi-Fi is implemented, and they have a choice. The common method is to generate an access code when the guest logs in, maybe the room number and the first 3 letters of the guest name, and send that code to the gateway, but not necessarily. Maybe the PMS system is going to request a code from the gateway and then pass that code to the client, and then tell the gateway to make that code active. When the guest checks out, tell the gateway to inactivate that code. And so it really depends on the hotel management, how they want to implement that process. The chains such as Hilton and Marriott have a standardized procedure for that. A lot of application software, this is the Oracle Hospitality Integration Platform. It was called Opera before Oracle acquired it. Now it's the Hospitality Integration Platform. This is probably used in getting on for 50% of hotels around the world. And so this is the most frequently interfaced software. You can see that the Oracle system has many types of APIs. They're not only interfacing with the Wi-Fi, they have interfaces with suppliers, for example, linen suppliers, food suppliers, all the different points of contact that the hospitality management system will have. There are also several tens of other PMS software products that are used by hotels around the world, and many of them also have APIs that would integrate with third-party systems. The ISP and community service segment consists of many smaller businesses who provide fixed broadband, which is a connection to a home or office, and also mobile broadband for mobile devices. The fixed broadband would use an encrypted Wi-Fi connection, whereas the mobile broadband would be unencrypted. In the United States, there are several thousand ISPs who provide these types of services. And it may be that an ISP, for example, is providing a fixed broadband connection to homes, but also providing a mobile broadband connection within customers. The ISP might have hotel customers, and so the ISP would manage the mobile broadband service inside that hotel as a managed service provider. And maybe the ISP has a shopping mall customer and would provide the service inside the shopping mall. So the ISP can also assume the role of a managed service provider. Outside the USA, this type of business is very, very popular, especially in rural areas where there is very little internet coverage. A lot of third-party suppliers provide mobile broadband. People are not necessarily willing to pay for a monthly subscription, but they are happy to pay maybe a daily rate for internet access to use that internet service when they need it. And so this is a very important area. A lot of products such as Ubiquity products are sold into this segment. And we can elaborate on that by building a cellular Wi-Fi network. So we can provide mobile broadband and have many antennas throughout a town, a village, whereby a customer can connect to one of the antennas and then move to a different antenna and stay connected to the internet for the duration of the access code. So a cellular Wi-Fi network is also a popular method of providing Wi-Fi. Each antenna can be connected to a different ISP. Unlike, you might think it's similar to an office environment where you have multiple access points connected back to one internet connection. Well, in this case, it's multiple access points, each connected to a different ISP. And so the cloud management system manages the roaming, manages the handoff from one antenna to the next, and very similar to your mobile phone system. So what are the desirable characteristics for a public internet service? We've seen some of the applications. Well, we want a product that's simple to install, has an intuitive UI, easy to understand, and minimum specialist skills. And so the products we find for this market are ranged over that scale, from the very easy to the very difficult. We want a product that works with any type of Wi-Fi and network equipment. We want to be able to authenticate users using one of several different methods. So we want options. We want to monitor the network access and use. We want to be able to supervise users, identify access attempts which we don't want, we don't allow. We want a firewall. We want rules to maybe block IP ranges, block routers, block DOS traffic, for example, viruses. We want to maybe block access to specific websites or to website categories. So this is part of the protection for the network infrastructure to prevent people abusing it. We want equipment for failure monitoring. We want to be alerted if something fails. If we're providing a public service, then we want to know it fails before we start getting loads of calls from people who are complaining about it. And so, like any ISP, like your AT&T or any company, they want to know about a failure very quickly before the users complain too much, so they can get it repaired. We want multi-WAN with load balance and failover, which means that we have access from maybe two ISPs. So if one fails, and that's usually the weakest link, then everything switches over to the other. When we have two ISPs, we can share the data traffic over both ISPs. If one fails, then we fail over and all the traffic goes to one ISP. We would like port forwarding. We'd like to have remote device configuration. So we need port forwarding so we can access those devices. We'd like to have a multi-segmented network using VLANs so that we can determine how we're going to use the Wi-Fi network. Maybe we're going to have different types of users. We want a cloud service for remote configuration, support, for monitoring, reporting. So basically, we've got all the features there that we would like from a small installation to a very large installation. Login page customization is something that most businesses want. They want to customize the service they provide, and that includes fast food to high-end resorts. We want to be able to use that login page as a means of communication with the user, maybe even to offer advertising space to third parties. That's very common, for example, in marinas, where you get a number of different businesses inside the marina that provide different services like engine repair, radio installation, that type of thing. And so they want to have their advertisement on the marina login page. Now, authentication methods really depend on the type of application, and we want to have a product which allows us to choose the authentication method. User authentication, maybe we want the user to agree to terms and conditions. Maybe we want the user to enter an access code that we provide, and that's how we're going to restrict access to the the authorized people. Maybe we're going to sell access codes online using a credit card. Maybe we're going to ask the customer for specific contact information to allow access. And maybe we're going to have multiple options where we provide free access for a certain time, and then we have the customer purchase access. Maybe we want a free access mode where a condominium can provide access, but control that access through a firewall. One of the important controls is to divide up the bandwidth, so each customer gets a certain amount of bandwidth so that we can share the bandwidth from the ISP between all users. We maybe want device authentication. We want to identify the device through the MAC address, or even have a login code using the MAC address. Share one connection between many users. I was just talking about that. Well, one of the problems when we connect many people to an internet service provider is a problem called network congestion. If you're familiar with that, what happens is that when many people are connecting to one circuit, then many people are opening many sessions. Each session has a certain characteristic through the TCP/IP protocol. And so as more people connect, the response time increases. So the person is waiting longer and longer until a point where the TCP protocol retries the transmission. And then you get network collapse. That's network congestion, because a number of different devices retry at the same time because the delay gets too high. And so what happens is everyone is disconnected from the network at that point. Well, that's obviously a situation we want to avoid. And so what we have to do is divide up that available bandwidth between many users. And so we would allocate a maximum download and upload speed per user. We reckon to allocate maybe 2 megabits per user. So if we have 50 users with like 100 megabit circuit, we can go above that. And in fact, many businesses do. Also, we're talking about concurrent users. So if we have a hotel with 100 rooms, maybe we only have 50 concurrent users maximum. We don't have 100 users or more. And so we would pick the number which gives us a good performance for each user, but avoids a situation where we lose connection to the internet. We also want to stop abuse, and so a computer, for example, with a denial of service virus can bring down a network, and so we want to block those computers. Maybe we want to set data limits to restrict the transfer of large files. Maybe we want to set time limits to restrict internet use. Maybe we want to block high volume websites such as Netflix, for example, data streaming websites, or like YouTube. So these are all considerations we have to look at when we're providing a public internet service. I mentioned redundancy. That is having multiple WAN ports that allow us to not only share the load, but also fail over in the event of an outage. So our primary connection might be a fiber ISP, but we also have secondary connections, maybe a 5G ISP, could be a satellite ISP, or a WISP with a point-to-point antenna. And so if the main circuit fails, then all the traffic is diverted to the backup circuit, and so we maintain connectivity for the users. And the availability really depends on the location. Maybe we can get 2 circuits from ISPs. Obviously, we don't want 2 circuits from the same ISP, because if one circuit fails, the other one will certainly fail, okay? Because somebody dug up a cable in the road, for example. And so we'd like 2 different ISPs, possibly using 2 different mediums. So a fiber connection and a 5G connection would be ideal, so that we get 2 different providers, both high-speed connections. Dual use networks. This is a very important aspect when we're providing different services to different people. If we have a hotel Wi-Fi network, we have two types of users. We have the guests who want to access the internet. We also have staff who need to access the back office systems, housekeeping, who are going around room to room, and they need to make a note of what's being consumed out of the refrigerator. And so they do that with a Wi-Fi device that talks back to the management system, the PMS system. And so we want a network whereby we have two SSIDs. One is unencrypted, one is encrypted. The encrypted SSID has a VLAN connection, which is routed back to the back office server systems. And so when the staff connect, they get an IP from the back office server. When the guest connects, the guest gets an IP from the controller and gets a connection to the internet. But the guest cannot get a connection to the back office system because it's firewalled from the guest. And so we save a lot of money because we install one wireless network in a hotel that is dual use, and our controller manages that use. Multi-level login, I mentioned this. Airport is a typical application, 30 minutes of free access. Then we charge the customer. The alternative is the customer has a credential for a service like Boingo, and so can enter with that credential. Maybe the airport has several different alternative entry points where different credentials can be used to get the internet access. And so typically the free access will be for a limited time and repeated only every 24-hour period. And then there would be several different paid access options depending on the agreements that the airport has with suppliers. This also applies to other types of environments, for example, like a trade show, where you would set up a Wi-Fi system, maybe even a temporary Wi-Fi system, where you would have people who are renting booths. You would give them access to the internet. The management would want access to the internet, and then visitors would want access to the internet. If you've been to trade shows, you know it's impossible to get 5G access because there are thousands of people trying to connect. And so the Wi-Fi is the only viable alternative. But probably the trade show organizer is going to charge for the Wi-Fi, especially if it's the Miami Beach Convention Center. So these are characteristics which we want to build out in our systems. Mobile Wi-Fi is something where there are a number of businesses offering this service. And so if you have some type of event and you need Wi-Fi, you can call in one of these businesses. Typically, what they do is connect to a 5G tower as the backhaul. They may use antennas like Yagi antennas to connect over a longer distance and get a faster data rate. You can also use a satellite antenna like Starlink. You power the whole system on a battery, and you have antennas with the guest access control, and you provide the type of internet service that you're contracted to provide. Maybe it's a free service, maybe it's a service where people can access with a code, so you have to generate codes and give those to the event organizer. And who might want this? Well, events like 5K runs, for example, want to set up a mobile Wi-Fi because there are many people probably would overload the 5G tower. So you can see, you can imagine that, you know, an event on Miami Beach. If you go to Miami Beach, you'll see events that are set up on the beach, and they need Wi-Fi, and so they set up a temporary connection like this. We want to monitor devices for failure. Excuse me. We want to monitor not only the controller, but we want to monitor the wireless access points that connect to the controller. If we're providing a service for the public will complain if the service breaks. And so we want to be able to address this as quickly as possible. We don't want people calling us complaining. So we want alerts if any component in the system fails, so that we can activate our tech support people and fix the problem as quickly as possible. So we'd probably have backup equipment. The alert message will tell us which equipment failed and where it's located. And so we go there, replace that equipment, and get things back online very quickly. One of the issues that any business which has a point of sale must take care of is protecting the point of sale from theft. The point of sale stores credit card information, and that's a target for thieves. So many businesses set up a wireless access point that's connected to the same network as the point of sale, and so the point of sale gets hacked. It's very easy to hack a point of sale. Credit card information is stolen, sold on the dark web. So what happens? The credit card company knows exactly where the credit cards were stolen, so they impose financial obligations on the merchant to reimburse them. Maybe the merchant will lose merchant services, and so the outcome is not good. And so it's very, very important that the merchant installs a firewall if installing public Wi-Fi. There's the PCI DSS payment card industry data security standard has a section about public Wi-Fi for any business that has accepts credit cards. And so they require that the public Wi-Fi is either connected to a completely separate ISP circuit, or else if it's connected to the business network, it must be connected with the firewall that's PCI compliant. And so this is an area where a lot of small businesses are not familiar, but it's essential that they upgrade their public Wi-Fi to include a firewall. Internet cafes, I mentioned those, probably not so popular in the USA because everybody has a mobile phone. Outside the USA, extremely popular. A point where people can go and get internet access. If you're a traveler, let's say you went on a holiday in Peru, you will also be using internet cafes because your mobile phone has no roaming. You want to send those selfies back to the folks back home, and so you would go along to the internet cafe. You'd pay whatever, how many pesos for an hour of access, and so the internet cafe would have a point of sale system like the one shown, where the wireless router has a ticket printer connected to it. A tablet is a point of sale display, and so the printer would be connected to a cash drawer. So it's very easy to set up, and that can be set up by people without any technical skills. Now, I mentioned there are entities who sell vouchers for internet access. Once again, popular in Latin America, Caribbean. People who maybe don't want to pay for a fixed internet service to the home. It has an expense because you have to install an antenna in the home and you pay a monthly subscription. The alternative is to use your mobile device and buy a voucher. And so you can buy a voucher at the Banca de Jornais, the place where they sell the newspapers, and that may give you 1 day of internet access. And this is a fairly easy business to set up. You can use the cloud system to print out the vouchers, sell those at different points of sale, and you can set up antennas around the city, so people can log into one antenna and then move to the next antenna to continue having internet access. The voucher code has characteristics like the duration, maximum download, upload speeds, maybe maximum data use. And so it's a very convenient way for both seller and customer to have internet access. So let's just do a little comparison here, business hotspot versus managed Wi-Fi service. The business hotspot is a simple application where you provide maybe a wireless access point with access for the public, and maybe it's open, maybe it's got a login page, maybe you issue codes for access, or maybe even you're going to charge for internet use. And there are three popular products in this segment: the guest internet, the Ubiquiti Unify, and the MIEEE router. And they vary in skill level. The guest internet requires no technical skill. The Ubiquiti Unify requires a moderate technical expertise. The MIEEE router requires a high level of expertise. But these are all competing products in the market. Prices start under $100. The managed Wi-Fi is the high end of the business, the resorts, the airports, large hotels. We're looking for cloud management so that the IT department can remotely configure and monitor the system. We're looking for maybe remote vendor support so that if something breaks, the vendor will come in and fix it. We're looking for API for integration with software platforms, reliability monitoring, failure alerting, multi-WAN for user reliability. And there are some high-end products: guest internet, nomadics, RG nets. Typically, they start at the $1,000 mark and go up from there to many thousands of dollars. So the popular gateway end of the market, the guest internet, easy to use, no special knowledge required. There's a range of products there. Ubiquiti Unify, these are very popular products. Ubiquiti used in many different applications. They have a hotspot feature where you can set up a login page. You can generate access codes. Not so easy to use. You need certainly a little bit of skill training to be able to configure this. There are free upgrades, but no cloud, no support, no manual, compared to the guest internet, which is free cloud, free support, free upgrades, free manual. The MIEEE router on its own is a router. It doesn't have any type of hotspot feature. There are free scripts which you can load onto a router which configure it as a hotspot controller. It does have what's called a captive portal, and so you can set up a login page. You can even generate access codes for the access, but that really has to be done by somebody who's got a pretty high level of skill. And so there are businesses that program these and sell them already programmed, but there's no cloud, no upgrades, no support, no manual. And if you need the configuration changing, then you pay for it. But it's very popular because MIEEE routers are available everywhere in the world, and so it's maybe the option of choice for many people. Here's a comparison table. I won't go into details, but you can download this afterwards if you want to look into detail. It just gives a feature comparison between those three. The guest internet, Ubiquiti Unify, and MIEEE. Compares the features and allows you to make a choice about which product suits your application best. Now, the high end, we have guest internet, nomadics, RG nets. There are a few others, but these are pretty popular. Guest internet has been around a long time, integrates with PMS systems, very popular for resorts, for airports, that type of thing. Nomadics, one of their limitations that they have a 3-year product life and they terminate support. Basically, they turn the unit off, so you've got to buy a new product every 3 years. But they do have contracts with some of the chains like Hilton and Marriott. They integrate with the software that Hilton and Marriott use, and also I think IGH. And so they are important for those groups because they integrate perfectly with the systems. They provide support for those systems, and so the nomadics is actually works a bit like a managed service provider because they're actually selling services as well as the product, and so that takes a headache away from the groups like Hilton and Marriott. They don't have to worry about it. RG Nets, based out of Reno, they are very popular with the casino industry in Reno, Nevada. So they have gained a lot of expertise in that area, and they provide not only a product but also managed services for that segment. So Las Vegas, all these areas where they have casinos with specialized requirements. So they're very popular for that. And so you can see there's variation in the types of products that are available. This is an overview of the guest internet product range. So you can see they go from the low end to the high end systems. And a little summary of the guest internet products: ease of use, flexibility, well, fast to install, no limited number of users, easy for users, so reduces customer service, easy to customize. You can display business information during login. You can decide how you want to provide the service, free charge, partial. You can have dual use Wi-Fi with VLAN configurations, throughputs up to 1 gigabit, up to 10 gigabit special order. You can build the cellular Wi-Fi networks, free cloud service, lifetime software, and online technical support. The protection and control is an important part of the higher end systems. Protect the business from hackers, because hackers certainly want to get access to business systems. We want to block computers with viruses, prevent sharing of copyrighted files, set the maximum data speed to share bandwidth, maybe set a maximum data limit, filter websites of individual or categories. We want to monitor failures with alerting, and then we want several different login methods, agree to the terms and conditions, request access codes, request user information, free access with firewall rules, online credit card charges, and several others. Let me just give you a quick bit of information about Internet Technology Answers. We provide internet consulting services and cyber security consulting services. So we work with different companies that are looking for solutions. They want to deploy services in a number of different environments using a number of different methods, and we help them with that. Finally, one page with my contact information. So we have social media sites. Please follow us on social media. You can contact us as well. We have a great partnership with Flytec, and so we can provide you with support for products that Flytec offer. And if you have a need for advice, we can be contacted. We're very happy to provide free advice for people. So that's the end of the presentation. I try to do it within a limited time frame. Now we come to question time. So if any of you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and Valia will check your questions, and we'll go through them, and I'll provide you with answers that you need. So do we have questions already in the chat box, Valia?
Not yet.
Okay, so if any of you have any questions about the information that's been presented, please drop them in the chat box. If you think of questions later, then you can contact Flytec or contact our email address there, and we'll be very happy to help you out. Okay. We'll wait a couple of minutes more if anyone has any questions, and then we'll finish the presentation. Okay. Do you have any questions coming in, Valia?
No, John. Okay, so there's someone typing, Ignacio.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Let's wait.
Okay.
Yes, Larry, we can have the presentation. I actually uploaded to the meetings file, so it's there. Ignacio is asking, is it possible to have a time meter Wi-Fi connection in a public environment?
Is it possible to what? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
To have a time meter Wi-Fi connection in a public environment, like a shopping mall.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you have a number of different options. One is to give people codes which have a certain time limit. Another option is to use the system that airports use, where you give people a certain time for a certain within a certain time frame. So, for example, an airport might give 1 hour, 30-minute internet access every 24 hours. If you're in a shopping mall, maybe you want to give 1 hour internet access every 24 hours, or 2 hour internet access. And so you can set the times and whereby a device will have access for a period of time. Okay?
Okay, yes, there's another question from Inusa. She's asking, in the face of Mac cloning, how do we solve the Mac authentication?
That depends on the product. For example, I was using Guest Internet products as an example. They do have protection against Mac cloning. They have various other protections. Obviously, people will try to get free internet access if it's charged, and so especially with the systems like the voucher sale, the internet per fisher, and so products like Guest Internet have a protection. They identify an attempt for Mac cloning. They identify various other types. One is router blocking, where somebody can set up a phone as a router, as a and then allow other people to connect. Well, that can be blocked as well. So there are several mechanisms to prevent misuse of the service. It really depends on the product that you install. If you install a hotspot with for example, a MIEEE router, you're not going to get that. If you install a hotspot with a Ubiquiti Unify, you're not going to get that. Those are basic products. If you install a Guest Internet, then you will get that. There are other products that have that type of service as well. Okay.
Okay. Ignacio is asking some other questions. He's asking if is Unify capable of doing time connections?
Yeah. Well, you can generate codes which are time limited, and so you can set up a login page whereby the user has to enter a code, and that code has a specific duration, like 1 hour or 5 hours or something like that. So yes, you can set the limit. You don't have the flexibility that you would have with other systems, whereby you can give free access for a certain time and then charge for the access. You don't have that type of flexibility with Unify.
Another question from Gaspar, how we can solve the registration for Apple platforms that use randomized media access control?
Well, that again depends on the equipment. That's a very frequent issue for public internet, because a lot of public internet systems actually register the MAC address and use that as a method to determine if that has been accessed. So, for example, if somebody with a Mac device gets an access code, enters that access code, gets internet access, goes away, and then connects again later, that same access code won't work because the MAC address of the device has changed. And so products like Guest Internet handle that by having options to change the authentication. And so with the Guest Internet, you can do IP-only authentication, whereby a device, once it's requested an IP, if it reconnects later, it's going to request the same IP to the DHCP service. And so you identify or recognize the device through that method. So there are other methods to do that as well, but generally speaking, people with Apple devices do have a few problems. It's not only the randomized MAC, it's also the issue where Apple doesn't like you connecting to a wireless access point that's not encrypted. And so you're going to have to answer the question that the device displays, do you really want to connect to this? And it changes with each release of iOS. So, you might have iOS 14 on your phone, you upgrade to iOS 15, and the way it handles public networks is different. Okay.
Larry is asking, I guess that's for you. Are you going to revamp your products for gigabit speed and IC For Wi-Fi, the new trend is AX.
Certainly, there's a move to constantly provide faster internet circuits. But in the case of most products, they work up to gigabit speeds right now. People are looking at 10 gigabit speeds. And I know in the case of guest internet, these are special order right now, but I think probably 2.5 gigabits will probably be available soon, and 10 gigabits. There's not a big demand for anything over a gigabit right now, simply because the circuits are not there. But what happened is that the government released a lot of money, $45 billion, to upgrade the infrastructure, to upgrade a lot of internet connections to fiber. And so those fiber circuits can be used up to 10 gigabits. The standard type of fiber circuit is usually a 2.5 gigabit down, 1.5 gigabit up, with 1 gigabit inside the premises over Ethernet. But fiber can be upgraded up to 10 gigabits inside the premises. And a lot of hotels right now are upgrading from maybe 100 megabit DSL, which is probably way too slow for them, up to gigabit fiber. And so they need now to upgrade the infrastructure to handle gigabit speeds for guests. But I think right now we can get 10 gigabit speeds in some urban locations, but as time progresses, 10 gigabits is going to become more prevalent. Okay?
Okay, we don't have more questions.
Okay, well, I thank you very much. It's great that all of you could join me today for this presentation. Once again, Valia arranged the download of the material. You can download it and use it. And any questions, contact Flytec, contact our email address, and we're very happy to help you out with any questions you might have. And we have these presentations every month. So in the month of May, we're going to have a presentation about the latest technologies for networking. So I hope you keep an eye on the announcement for that and join us for that presentation. So thanks very much.